Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. In today's episode, we are revisiting part of the map that's been sitting untouched for quite a while. Our industrial port and rail yard area. To be honest, I've been avoiding this section. It's one of the older parts of the city, probably built about a year ago now, and I was never quite sure what I wanted to do with it. In fact, I'm still not completely sure. So in this episode, the goal is pretty straightforward. I'm going to bring the industrial area visually up to speed with the rest of the city, doing some lighter detailing, cleaning up around the edges, and making sure it integrates better with its surroundings. And the area we're going to be working on is coming into view right now. As you can see, it's rather large. Part of the reason why I've been avoiding it. My name is Geifs, and let's get started. Okay, so the first half of this video is going to be pretty quick pace. What I'm doing here is I'm just doing a bit of light detailing and cleaning up. I want to bring this area visually up to speed with the rest of the surroundings. So it's not obviously the way it is right now, it's just standing out like a sore thumb. Now, when I made this area, it was about a year ago now. If I was to build it today, I probably would not build it the same way. I wouldn't make it so large. I would break it up into smaller, more manageable areas. But unfortunately, the city now demands a fair amount of industrial, and I'm running out of flat areas to build on. So it has to stay, and we're just going to have to make the best of it and try to visually integrate it so it looks a little more complete and finished. Do a bit of detailing. The detailing is mostly going to be confined to around the edges where it's transitioning into the rest of the city. And the core of it, we're going to be pretty light on the detail. Right now I'm just doing some minor alterations to the roads and adding a few more rail tracks and stuff. Here I'm changing it a little bit. I want to change this into more like a rail cargo yard type of area. So took out some of the industry and I'm going to replace it with some warehouses right along the rail tracks here. Now this shoreline is really, we're going to just kind of like square it up a bit to make it, essentially we're going to give the idea that it's been mostly landfilled. We can imagine the port area is being dredged and that is being used to do the landfill. This is a major port facility. This is like a deep water port. So this is the port facility that replaced the smaller port in New Sunderland. My main goal here is to try to make this rather large area a little more visually interesting, and I'm doing that by kind of altering the shapes of the dock areas. It looks a little more like a dock, if that makes any sense. and then the game crashed. And I have to say, I've been very lucky with game crashes. They don't happen too often, but every once in a while that is still a thing that happens. So remember to save your game, which unfortunately I didn't do here, I don't think. Now the game is kind of settled out after the patch, and my unemployment rate is actually fairly decent. It's between 7 to 8%, but I still need some more industrial jobs. I think that's where I'm lacking. What I'm going to do here is use one of the signature industries to bump up the job numbers. They're great. They have a huge number of employees. And we're going to put one right down here in that new section I'm building, and we're going to put in the fuel refinery. It was kind of a toss-up of which one I want to use. The fuel refinery has some nice bonuses. It basically reduces air pollution. I noticed when you look at it, its input it needs is grains. I'm guessing it's making ethanol to add to the gas. That's kind of fun. I'm going to use some prop buildings here to build up this cargo area. So we're using this from the train cargo depot as our terminus. The main issue with building zones and districts this large, like especially for an industry, is you got to fill it all in. And industry doesn't look good if you pack it all in wall to wall. You need to leave a lot of space. One thing you got to remember of industry, the land value of where the industry is built is really low, and low land values usually indicate a lot of sprawl. Packed in industry usually never really looks good. You need to give it a little more room, parking lots, empty lots, all that sort of stuff. Also, this, like some of the spaces, like planning out how large areas are going to be on the map. At this point of the game, when I was building this, I didn't really have a clear idea of it. So a lot of this is just way oversized. Yeah, we made some land reclamation here to reclaim a little bit of this bay area. It's way too big, so filling it in with a little something extra, not a bad idea. Also, like I said earlier, I need more industry. I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to sneak in a little more office space in and around some of the industrial areas. The port facility is adjacent to the city of Queensport. So Queensport became a bit of a distraction during this build. I kept noticing issues over there and wanting to go over and correct them. Some of this took a little longer than I was anticipating, simply because I kept wanting to fix problems not directly associated with this episode. I'm mostly going to cover up most of this area with concrete and asphalt, which makes sense for an industrial port facility. What you've seen down here is some remnants of a glitch I had, a bug that happened late last summer, where the decals and the props got however the sorting system, it got kind of scrambled, and this happened all over the map. It was a huge mess. Luckily, it's just visual, it doesn't affect the gameplay, but obviously I've missed a few pockets of it where I have to come in and clean it up around here. They were in the, like, I think they were like stain decals or something like that originally, and they got replaced with graffiti. Okay, so one side effect of that bug from last summer was a lot of the surfaces that I put down in this area, I had to delete them. So we're going to redo it here, and I'm just going to use it as an opportunity to play around with a few surfaces and, you know, see what new things I can come up with. Now we're using the net lane surfaces here to cover up the rail tracks. These are great. It's in some areas and not so great in others. You'll see that a little later in this episode. They work very well where there's a bit more space between the rail lines. Where they get a little more packed together, not so good. Okay, so this is one of the areas that got kind of wrecked with that bug. So I'm going to spend a bit of time in here using the new surfaces to try to see what I can create here. I believe the base I'm using here is a mulch surface. I'm just layering on top of it different gravel, rock surfaces, grass, and stuff like that. And as you can see, you can get some rather interesting looking combos. These random parking lots were also part of that glitch. It was very annoying. It damaged quite a lot of things, unfortunately. Now, when I first made this section, I didn't have the Real Vision decals, so we're going to try using a few of them around here. We are going to fill in a little bit of this area. This is basically the transition area between Queensport and the industrial area down here. So offices, a little more industry, few offices, that sort of stuff. And I'm just going to spruce up some of these surfaces with some of the new grass surfaces. Blend it in a little better. Down here, this is essentially an abandoned rail line, so I want to try to do something a little different here. So you're going to use some of the new gravel surfaces here. They actually cover the rail lines completely, so this actually works as a very nice way to disguise that awful track bed surface if you don't want to use the net lanes. And I'm just going to add a bit of grass here to make it look like it hasn't been used for a while. This junkyard here, this was originally finished with surface decals. And because of that bug, I had to delete them all. So we're going to redo it here, but we're going to now use actual surfaces instead and see what I can come up with. Now, if I wanted to, I could have just kept going with this technique and really dial in the detailing here. But there's kind of like this diminishing returns type of effect that starts to happen. As I could spend a lot of time really detailing this out to perfection, but how much time is that actually going to take, and how good is it really going to look? You got to remember, my preferred viewing distance is from a bit of altitude, right? So am I really gaining anything from adding all that detail? So there's a bit of a trade-off here, and that's totally up to the individual, the visual style, the aesthetics, and if all that sort of stuff they're going for. Now I'm not sure what happened here. This looks kind of lazy, to be honest. So we're going to delete this and we're going to make it a proper trash pile here. And we're going to do that with the garbage surface. Some of these new dirt surfaces around it. Come back in with the trash props, but this time we're going to sink them into the ground by about a meter or so they look like they're actually in the garbage pile. It would be nice if I had a before and after. I might, the very first episode, even though it's kind of painful to watch at this point, I think I spent a bit of time looking at this. So if you want to see what this looked like originally, you can go back and see that episode. But it was my very first episode, so yeah, it's rather a difficult thing to watch now. I'm just going to spend a bit of time finishing off these areas next to the industrial area offices. It's a mixture of offices and industry. It's at this time that I noticed that for some reason I have built two separate bus depots right next to each other. I'm not sure how I managed to do that. Obviously not paying attention. For the moment, I'm just going to leave it. I know that's not necessarily the most cost-effective way to deal with it, but it's not really, I'm still making money. Well, actually at this moment I'm kind of losing money, but overall my losing money eventually evens out here and I start gaining money again. Not that I'm, like I've said in the last episode, no, it's not like I'm hurting for cash here though. I'm going to use this little patch down here to do a few more experiments with surfaces. This time I thought I might try the ore surface. Is it my imagination or does this look a little better than it did before? I wonder if they replaced it. Don't necessarily know if these are like the best combinations of these surfaces, but it's good to play around with them to see what combinations, what effects you can get. Like this might not be perfect for this particular spot, but it might be useful somewhere else. The biggest challenge for this particular area is because I have so much large paved area is breaking it up enough so visually it's not repetitive. Also, because it's such a large area, I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time like micro detailing every square inch of it. It would take several episodes to do that. And I'm not exactly sure if I'm done with this area or not. I'm still thinking about it. I might want to come back in here and build something else. So I don't want to spend a lot of time detailing something that essentially I'm going to come back in and destroy at some later date. But I also want to detail it enough that it doesn't look incomplete. I'm going to break up some of that repetition with essentially building abandoned lots. They have the foundation of something that used to be there, but it's been some time, and so bushes and weeds and that sort of stuff start to grow into the lot. Okay, this monstrosity of a rail yard. When I first built this, I really didn't know what I was doing down here. I still don't know. When it comes to rail, I still don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not an expert on rail. All I'm really aiming for here is we're going to tidy it up visually, just make it look like it has a bit more sense to it. But I also want to keep a little bit of chaotic randomness to it in some locations, just for visual interest. Whether that's appropriate or not for a rail yard, I don't really know. I think that looks a little better there. Now, the big issue here was the detailing I used in New Sunderland for the Railyard port facility there. I was using the net lanes like the one down below here. Unfortunately, because these are single tracks and they're much more packed in together, it didn't work. Unfortunately, that net lane does not blend very well with anything else. It sticks on top of everything. So you can't blend it, and it overlaps in weird ways. And it wasn't going to work. So I had to come up with a new solution in here. I am not 100% happy with it, but I didn't know what else to do with it. Essentially, I'm not happy because it doesn't really match very well. I mean, if everything looked like this, it would be fine. But I have this kind of disconnect between the two surfaces. I'm just going to have to live with it for the moment. Hopefully, perhaps in the future, better solutions might present themselves. This decal here was the same technique I used over in New Sunderland. It worked much better over there. It doesn't necessarily work as well here, but it's not bad either. I think if it was just more consistent over the entire rail network, it would make more sense. gonna sneak in a little more industry here. And a few more parking lots. Can't have enough parking lots. And I'm gonna hide this awkward transition under this overpass. How convenient. I'm also going to add a few weeds here to try to break up the surface a little bit. And already that's looking much, much better. Now I'm going to fill in the port facilities a little more, make them look like there's something actually going on down here. So we're going to add a few prop cargo ships. And I'm also going to be using these handy little props from Harbor Master J. These are little cranes. Once again, a clever little assemblage of parts. Now I could get super crazy with the decals and surfaces and obviously just detail this up to an insane level, but like I said, it's such a huge area that it would take several episodes on its own just to finish. You guys, sometimes you have to pick your battles, and this is the battle I didn't want to have to do. I also have to say, when it comes to the actual surface decals, I don't know if I'm all that great with using them. I find them to be kind of clunky at times. And that brings us to the end of this episode. A little different episode. Sometimes, you know, it's house cleaning essentially at this point, but it needs to be done. And I think the entire area looks so much better for it as well. Once again, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the episode. I really do appreciate it. In the upcoming episodes, we're going to get back into a little more. We're going to start building up the coastline. We're going to seaside communities, a few interesting little hidden surprises in the area as well. And I can't wait to get back at that. And we'll start that in the next episode. Once again, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.